Hey everybody, this is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2021 and the Google Pixel 4a. To get some more information on the pricing and availability of these devices, be sure to check the links in the description. That being said, let's get started. The Moto G Stylus has a 6.8-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 386, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 84.9%. The Google Pixel 4a has a 5.81-inch OLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 443, an aspect ratio of 19.5:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 83.3%. So if you're looking for a larger screen, without a doubt the Moto G Stylus has a much larger screen. As you can see here, next to the Moto G Stylus, the Google Pixel 4a is definitely on the smaller side. Now when it comes down to the quality of the display, there is a little bit of a difference, as the Moto G Stylus has an IPS LCD display, whereas the Google Pixel 4a has an OLED display with a higher PPI. So in general, the display of the Google Pixel 4a is going to be a little bit brighter, and it's probably going to be a tiny bit higher quality because of the higher PPI. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Both of these phones have hole punches for the front-facing camera, which is great. Combined with their really thin bezels, gives them both a really modern, sleek look that I really like. Now for the front-facing camera, the Moto G Stylus has a 16 megapixel camera, whereas the Google Pixel 4a has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. But we're gonna see in the demonstration later on what the difference is in their performance. Now both of these phones have 128 gigabytes of internal storage. The difference is the Moto G Stylus has micro SD card expansion, whereas the Google Pixel 4a does not. Now 128 gigabytes is definitely a good amount of storage, so you really might not need the micro SD card expansion. In fact, unless you have a lot of photos and videos, that micro SD card expansion is probably not going to really make a big difference. If you have larger apps, it would help, but at the same time, you can't put apps usually on a micro SD card, so that's something to keep in mind. We can see here right now, they have basically the same amount of stuff on them, and it's really not taking up a whole lot of storage at all. 15-16%. You're definitely going to have a good amount of free space for whatever you need it for. Even if you don't use it a whole lot, it's better to have more space than not enough, so this is great to see. Now, both of these phones have a fingerprint scanner. For the Moto G Stylus, the fingerprint scanner is located right here on the side. And for the Google Pixel 4a, the fingerprint scanner is right here on the back. Both great spots, really convenient. But I would say the Moto G Stylus does have a bit of an edge here because you really can't beat a fingerprint scanner on the power button itself. Most convenient in my opinion. Also, the Moto G Stylus does have face unlock and the Google Pixel 4a does not. That being said, let's give these fingerprint scanners a try. Starting with the Moto G Stylus. One more time. There we go. I barely tapped it and it unlocked right away. Really fast and responsive. Testing the fingerprint scanner for the Google Pixel 4a. One more time. There we go. Both of them are really fast and responsive. I really have no complaints. Now taking a look at these phones' camera setups. The Moto G Stylus has a 48 megapixel rear camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and also a 2 megapixel macro camera. The Google Pixel 4a only has one camera on the back with a 12.2 megapixel rear camera. We'll see how it works. This is the normal camera mode for the Moto G Stylus. The picture is very crisp and the colors are well balanced. Really nice picture. This is the ultra wide mode. A lot of the time, ultra wide mode does cause a little bit of distortion, but with this phone, it's really consistent. I don't see any distortion. The sides aren't warped at all. The colors still really look good. This is the macro camera. The macro camera looks really nice. It gets those close-up details without having any distortion or glare. This is the front-facing camera for the Moto G Stylus. It really does look good. There are no problems that I see. The image is decently crisp and the colors are good. This is the normal camera mode of the Google Pixel 4a. It does look really nice. One thing I really like about this camera is that it actually has this little line here that tells you the angle, and I've never seen that in a camera before. It's really nice because if you want to make sure that something is actually level, it's a really good tool to have that you don't really find in a lot of other phones. As far as the colors go, it's really well balanced. Even though the Moto G Stylus has a higher megapixel camera than this phone, the camera is actually really good, and I don't see a whole lot of a difference in the quality. Now, the unfortunate thing about this phone is it has no ultra wide or macro camera, so that is too bad. Those are really useful features. It does have portrait mode, so that's good. This is the front-facing camera for the Google Pixel 4a. It's actually surprisingly good. I wasn't actually expecting this kind of quality. Now for video mode, the Moto G Stylus shoots 4K in the rear and up to 1080p in the front. And the Google Pixel 4a shoots 4K in both the rear and the front, which is a bit of an advantage. Now internally, the Moto G Stylus is getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 678 processor. On Geekbench 5, it has a single core score of 538 and a multi-core score of 1588. The Google Pixel 4a is getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 730 processor. This one has a single core score of 551 and a multi-core score of 1649. So overall, the Google Pixel 4a is gonna be a tiny bit faster. Seeing the numbers on Geekbench is one thing, but seeing them in action is another. So we're gonna test this out real quick, starting by opening Google Chrome. As you saw there, the Google Pixel 4a did load just a tiny bit faster. Let's test out a web page. As you saw there, it was really close, but I did see the Google Pixel 4a load just a little bit faster. So really at the end of the day, the Google Pixel 4a is going to be a tiny bit faster as far as the processor goes. But as you saw from both the Geekbench numbers and the demonstration, the difference really isn't that big. And I really wouldn't base a decision on which one has a faster processor because the processor isn't really that much different. Now the Moto G Stylus has a 4000 milliamp hour battery that supports 10 watt fast charging. And the Google Pixel 4a has a 3140 milliamp hour battery that supports 18 watt fast charging. Now overall, the Moto G Stylus is gonna have a tiny bit better of a battery, but the Google Pixel, if you have a fast charger, will charge faster. Even though the Google Pixel 4a does have a little bit faster of a processor, the Moto G Stylus has a much larger screen, and the screen is a lot better for content consumption. But if you're looking for a more compact phone that has a slightly faster processor, then the Google Pixel 4a is a great option as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.